Good evening and welcome to the Monday, January 22nd meeting of the Green Bay Plan Commission. Go ahead and start with a roll call. Chair Lisa Hanson, present. Vice Chair Jacob Miller is excused. Alder Jim Hutchinson,
Present.
Commissioner Sidney Bremer,
Present.
Commissioner Darius Daniels,
Present.
Commissioner Ken Ravinsky,
Present.
and Commissioner Michael Praddick.
Present.
Moving on to approval of the agenda for the January 22nd, 2024 meeting of the Plan Commission.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion by Commissioner Praddick, second by Commissioner Ravinsky. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving on to the approval of the minutes from the January 8th, 2024 meeting of the Plan Commission.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion by Commissioner Praddick, second by Commissioner Ravinsky. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and then moving on to regular business, and item number 1 is a public hearing. This public hearing has been properly posted and public notification has been published in the Press Times. The Plan Commission is interested in hearing public comments on the subject agenda items. We invite your comments and ask that after your name has been called, you state your name, your address, whether you represent a group or association, whether you favor, oppose, or want to provide information, and your comments or concerns. We ask that you confine your testimony to facts related to the proposal at hand and avoid repetitive testimony. City staff will provide a presentation during the public hearing, and questions raised by the public may be asked, but they will not be answered by staff until the upcoming actionable item. You must be recognized by the Plan Commission in order to speak, and please address your comments to the chair. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. We will now open the public hearing on item number 1. Public hearing on the request for a conditional use permit to create a restaurant with drive-through in a C1 General Commercial District at 3112 Finger Road, submitted by Joel Erfurth of Mach 4 Engineering and Surveying on behalf of Early Childcare 2 LLC, property owner.
Thank you, Chair. The property we're looking at here is at the corner of East Mason, Ontario and Finger. Next slide. The existing zoning is C1 General Commercial. And it's that way out to the east as well. Future land use for this area, everything south of Finger, and this general vicinity is for commercial spaces. Next slide. So what you're seeing right there is a street view of Ontario looking east northeast on the property. The vacant field that is there. This is on the same block that had the rezone back in summer that was dealing with the daycare right next to the woods. And so here, next slide. The applicant is looking to put in a drive-through use on the site itself. So I do it's C1, the retail and office commercial space like that, permitted uses wouldn't be in front of this board whatsoever. The question that comes up is drive-through and the user. So the way this is proposed to be split up is into 5 separate tenants, with tenant 1 being the drive-through property. And then for all the rest of the tenants 2 through 5, we don't know the exact user, but generally speaking, it would be some sort of, you'd say, strip mall user. What's known here is drive-through coffee shop. Exact one, do not know which one, but it's a coffee shop of some sort. So when we're reviewing this, we're looking at can the site accommodate such a use? So the drive-through lane is proposed to come off the driveway entrance off of Finger Road. You have 3 different places where, in theory, it could come off, but you cannot come off of East Mason because there's a no driveway restriction there. Ontario does not work either because of just how close Finger and Mason come to one another. You wouldn't hit the typical setbacks for a drive entrance. And finally, where the applicant has placed a driveway makes the most sense. You want to place it as far to the east as possible on the site to get that traffic away from the intersection as much as possible. In addition, for the sake of a drive-through purpose, this gives some pretty good queuing opportunity to actually make this drive-through be functional and work. So the distance that you have from the window one, which is down at the western part of tenant 1, back up through where you enter the drive-through lane, it's about 260 feet or so, linear feet. So with that in mind, if all the cars are just tight one another, you can expect 13 cars in them. However, they probably won't be that close because people want to get themselves in space. So even if they happen to be more like between 12 and 15 feet apart between one another, you can still fit 9 cars. That meets the code pretty easily. You have to have 3 in front of the window, 3 in front of the menu board. So it hits that. In addition, because you just want to get some context of what we committed to other recent developments that maybe we can look back to in the city. We've had developments for University Avenue with the Burger King that was done. That's only 200 feet for queuing that goes back. And then if you were to queue, you go back to University Avenue, which nobody should be doing. The scooters on East Mason, that's a long queue there. That's about 295 feet. If you were to go back out, you'd be over onto Baird at that point, or when one of those streets in there next to the woods. And then finally, one of our very long ones is everybody's afraid of the issue of traffic that Popeyes and East Mason. That's a very long 350 feet on that one. So this one's about 260 feet in there. So when it comes to vehicular access on the sites, the placement of that drive-through has merit because you have 3-sided design. Now I want to just do a mention. This actual parcel came in front of the Board of Appeals last week at the typical January meeting. It received a variance for the use of having a menu board and the menu ordering sign on the window board between the front of the building and a street. It's a 3-sided property. There's very few places for a drive-through to go. So we presented it in front of the Board of Appeals. It's a chicken and egg thing. Either come in front of you all first or them first. Either way, somebody's gonna crack at this first. They did approve that with the condition that for that use, having the window board between the building and the street has to be approved by Common Council. So this CUP would have to be approved for that variance to go into effect. So they did feel it met the conditions of a variance. So additionally, the placement of the drive-through, it's placed into what would be essentially the back of the building. These are all 3 front-sided buildings, or it could give a front on all buildings, but the intensity of the actual restaurant and the other 4 tenants is faced out towards Mason. So you have the building separating back over the folks who happen to live over on Finger Road. But you do have the drive-through. Now, as part of the design that was put forth by the applicants, it's not a full-on design. It's still conceptual. They do note the area for where there should be a berm and plantings that are in between the drive lane and the road out to the north. We have some additional comments, but we'll take care of that once we get to recommendations. The landscaping code in general, the update, does a really good job for this purpose, to give that separation of uses between the drive lane and potentially to residential areas. I'll note that looking at other projects that have happened here in the recent past, as part of the PD for the Starbucks over on East Mason, that PD addresses issue of being adjacent to residential property owners on 2 sides, on both the west and the north side of that property, by increasing the height of the fencing or wall, and also increasing the opaque levels of that separation. So as staff considered this, we felt that the design was working pretty well. That said, though, it still is adjacent to other properties. So there are some ways where you'll note in the recommendations that we have added other conditions to this. We want to note it's about 150 feet or so from if you take the drive lane and you went due north, you're about 150 feet from the fronts of the residences across the street. Now, there are 3 different 2-family residences on the other side of the street. If we look to other developments, that's not that atypical. The scooters, less than 150. The Starbucks, less than 150. The Burger King University, less than 150. It's not atypical, but it's not nothing. We want to note, yes, there are folks who are here. So with all that in mind, we looked at the 7 standards for reviewing conditional use purposes, and we felt that this design is doing an adequate job in general, but we'd still recommend some conditions to this. Because the site inherently has some challenges to it due to its already limitations with being 3-sided and being across from the neighbors. Notice was sent out to Alder and to the neighborhood association. And there was also notice because of the variance. At the variance, one neighbor across the street did attend. They brought up concerns as far as traffic to the site. We have received some feedback since the publication of the staff report. Two members of the public were asking general questions about what the site would be. One member of the public, who I think is online right now, did mention this following letter. They'll read it out loud. She's Jolene Bartlett. Hello, without the proper infrastructure to support the traffic, increase in traffic, I have safety concerns before any developments. Currently, there are problems trying to cross Ontario from either direction or Finger Road. Traffic coming off of Mason onto Ontario makes it near impossible to cross at certain times of the day. We need safe roads built before construction, or we'll end up like lime kiln by Costco. Thank you for my attention to my concerns, Jolene Bartlett, McCullough neighborhood since 1986. We did speak with DPW as to concerns as far as traffic and Finger Road. DPW at the moment did not have many concerns about this development. As noted, this is still if you didn't have the drive-through use, the commercial uses of permitted development on this site. When it comes to construction of the new road, much like when it came to the childcare facility, they would take into account feedback from neighbors, feedback from the elders, and where the road condition of the road itself, which in general, this portion of Finger Road is in decent shape. On the scale being 5 being the best, this range between a 3 and a 4 in this area of the road. And then how does this line up with other projects that are nearby? DPW wanted to note that the traffic that came from the childcare facility is about 60 cars per day, which is pretty minimal. They didn't feel the traffic that would come out of here would be anything that would be extraordinary. They wanted to note that the overall block itself is about 41 acres or so. If you take the Finger south, down south to Mason, Ontario, back over to Huron. The development of that, if you count this 1.3 acres or so, the overall development of the block will now get to about 10.9 acres of the overall block developed. So they want to keep in mind when it comes to, at some point, this road needs to be redeveloped and reconstructed. But the amount of use right now compared to what it will be in the future and knowing what will those potential businesses and uses be is not there. So they acknowledge it should go actually higher on the list as far as reconstruction, but until there's a more known feeling as to what the rest of this block, which from Ontario to Huron is 2,600 linear feet. If this site were to be developed, it would mean the entire development along Finger on the south side of the road would be 400 of those 2,600 linear feet. You still aren't there yet to really ask for that new construction right now. So that was our input on this, and yeah, we'll address the recommendations.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, so now with this public hearing, we're looking to hear from anybody who would like to speak on this. If you can state your name and address for the record. Is there anyone looking to speak?
I will. Hi, I'm Joel Airford with Mach 4 Engineering. We're here on behalf of the developer. I think staff did a nice job of presenting the project. You know, we did put a lot of time into trying to minimize the impact to the neighborhood. The big thing for me was putting that queuing for the drive-through, not shining at houses. So that's why we have the drive-through window on the west side of the facility. And then, some of the comments are, in the recommendation of the opacity and so forth. We don't have any problems doing that. The one thing that we would like to ask you consider part of one of the recommendations, just to put us on kind of a level playing field with some of the competitors in town. I went and looked, the scooters on East Mason, their operating hours are 5 to 8. There's one in Oneida, it's 5:30 to 8. West Mason's 5 to 8. Starbucks, the one on Military, is 5 to 9. Main Street is 5:30 to 8:30. And the new one on East Mason there, I think that's the newest one, East Mason and John. They have a 5 AM to 8 PM operating hours. Just that if we could, I know the staff report indicated like, I think it was 6 to 10. Even if you could meet us at like 5:30 to 9:30, something like that, just so we're not, breakfast is, or morning is a, more important time for that business model. That at least we'd be on an equal footing with, some of the folks that we're gonna be competing against, but. I didn't know if I should speak now or during the presentation, so that's all I had. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Let the record.
Could I speak?
Oh, yep, go ahead. State your name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, John Crab, 505 Larry Lane, Green Bay. So I did remit an email regarding this. I did not hear that being read. So don't know if it's been accounted for or not. I'm opposed to having a drive-through pretty much anywhere like right now. And just to echo what Jolene kind of submitted before, it is a traffic concern and it is a safety concern. You're bringing in, the industrial park over there, having a drive-through, and it is already really tough to access or get through Ontario from Finger Road with the traffic the way it currently is. And that's not really gonna, having a drive-through right there is just gonna make that so much worse. It's like the same concerns with the zoning variance from earlier. It's still present, but now it's like, yeah, you're definitely bringing in more traffic when you're having a drive-through, and it already is difficult to access, to drive right through on Finger Road, especially those hours. Now you're talking school buses, you could have trash pickup on certain days, whatever. The lights are not very conducive for being able to, if you're going one way or the other, north or east or west on Finger. So, again, I'm against having like a drive-through there. And just a general question, I just kind of saw like the plot plan and stuff like that. Why was this not given to us when earlier? If you're submitting a design, all you had was just the simple plot with the location indicating where something was, but we didn't have any detailed drawings or anything like that that's being shown here. Why not? That's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Was there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Was there anyone wishing to speak on this item? Was there anyone wishing to speak on this item?
Yeah, I'd like to say a few words if that's all possible.
Go ahead, please, just state your name and address for the record, please.
Jacob Hansen, 2965 Beth Drive. Just wanted to say that just with the way how the proposal of some kind of a coffee shop with the drive-through, I've worked at a Starbucks in the past. I don't believe that that's enough space for a drive-through lane. I've worked at a lot of high capacity stores in my time, and I've seen the constant problem of there being a holdup on Finger from traffic trying to get from both ways into that drive-through lane. With respect to the design, I just think it's going to be a hassle on Finger for a lot of people. And they already have people coming from Uncle Mike's Bake Shop. You got people coming from after hours, school buses and everything else too as well. If there were a better proposal for a longer drive-through, somewhere where all that traffic can funnel through while they're all waiting, maybe a little bit of a better proposal, but I think it's not well thought out through at the time.
Okay, thank you very much for your testimony.
Of course.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak?
There's someone that's unmuted, does she?
Right, let the record reflect that no one came forward and this public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the corresponding actionable item. Item number 2, consideration with possible action on the request for a conditional use permit to create a restaurant with drive-through in a C1 General Commercial District at 3112 Finger Road, submitted by Joel Erfurth of Mach 4 Engineering and Surveying on behalf of Early Childcare 2 LLC property owner.
Thank you, Chair. I do want to note, so I looked through my junk mail just now, there were 2 that came through here, so what you mentioned, and I want to mention one from Tiffany Dove at 3104 East Breeze Lane. Excuse me. I'm writing to express my concern with adding a restaurant with drive-through to the area of Finger Mason, Ontario. I've lived in the neighborhood for 17 years. Traffic at those intersections has been constantly increasing. Adding a restaurant, especially when the drive-through, is going to dramatically increase traffic in the area. There's already so much traffic on Ontario. I don't feel this condition would be safe. We often walk our dog in the area. We've almost run over by traffic near Uncle Mike's, and they don't even have a drive-through. The traffic we backed up there north of Finger and Ontario intersection, that cars would not be able to turn left off of Finger. I'm kindly asking you to please not grant this permit. Tiffany Dove, 3104 East Breeze Lane. So staff does feel that approval does meet the conditions of a CUP. We recognize the traffic as far as the queuing, and we did feel as far as the size of lots and the amount of queuing that is out there, the placement of the 5 units building, and the amount of space that goes from that westernmost window going all the way back to the drive entrance, leaves sufficient space to have even beyond typical loading levels. Keep this in mind, if there were 13 cars in there and it took 3 minutes per order for each one of those, that'd be a backup that's pushing around 40 minutes. And typically people aren't waiting in line for 40 minutes for a coffee place to pick up an order. Let's reduce it down to 9. That still puts that wait around 27 minutes or so for somebody to make the idea that they'd go wait in line to grab a coffee order in that line rather than going inside. As noted in the recommendation, the landscape of the northern boundary shows a conceptual plan right now, but it doesn't have the specifics. In general, Code 1964 of Chapter 44, 1964 puts a great emphasis on landscaping. We do recommend to beef it up a bit to a minimum of 4 feet in height and a 100% opaque barrier on a year-round basis, as well as a focused concentration of plantings in front of any order boards or window openings along that north side. Why that? If you look back to PUDs for Starbucks over at Mason and John, that was the standard that was put forth to try to have a more of a barrier between the residents that are in that situation closer to the drive-through compared to these folks out here. But we still thought it was a good idea. Additionally, we felt the idea of having the drive-through lane from 6 to 10 made sense. As you heard from the applicants, they'd like to have a bit more consideration. I can attest those hours are all spot on as far as what he said right there. We looked at that as far as what we were trying to have as far as hours to be placed in here. 6 to 10 was thought of as 10 o'clock as your standard cutoff for any sort of noise. 6 a.m. just given the reference to folks who are across the way. Yes, the noise can be down, but it still is cars who are idling and giving off exhaust and just being in the general area nearby to try to have a bit more of a time frame to allow for those folks to be more in peace in the morning. We still would have no problems with the restaurant being open at an earlier time inside of the phone. But if this plan commission feels that 5:30 to 9:30 is an appropriate time, we're just trying to put some more standards on there based off of past situations here where there happened to not be one at say 5 a.m. And in retrospect, people might have said they wish they had a bit more of a control over that if they could have for your scooters, your Starbucks.
To not be as early as 5.
To not be as early as 5 a.m. And this is just people just speaking up months or years later after all is said and done. And then finally, just typical compliance with the regulations of Green Bay Municipal Code.
All right, thank you very much. So now it's all the drive-throughs come through us, so I mean, we've okayed that 5 AM on the other properties. That
Yeah.
Scooters and that Starbucks on East Mason.
Correct. It wasn't put forth by anybody at that time to say, by neighbors to put in that hours of operation at 5 AM. It just so happens, like the applicant mentioned, places open at 5. That just happens to be the typical standard now for your coffee shops in the area. And so just hearing folks talk about this, neighbors felt that there could be some sort of reference to allowing for a later start time compared to at 5 AM.
And then this came through the Board of Appeals. What went through at the Board of Appeals? So they're a stricter body than
Yep,
we are.
at the Board of Appeals, what they had to consider was that, we can go back to the site plan. So this goes back to the whole three-sided design. There are 3 fronts to this. The drive-through code is trying to place those, the windows and the menu boards past the front plane of the building, put it in the side or the rear. In this situation, they're placing it on the north side and on the west side. That's facing the front along Ontario, facing the front along Finger. With that code, you can't have that space between the building and the road. So the only spot that the applicant could have put this would be placing it perhaps if you had on the east side. But part of the issue to have with that then is going back to the,
Yeah, the queuing.
you'd have queuing and you'd have headlights that go directly
Going
into.
toward the house.
Yes, so this took advantage, one, of the geographical nature of this lot to where it's east-west and elongated. To get that line to go wrapping around the northern part of the building. Have your queue be longer between 9 and 13 cars on that north side. And then place your intensity on the south side between Mason Street and then blocking off the folks around on Finger.
Right, so the headlights facing onto East Mason and then all the parking lot all on East Mason too, so the intensity's in the front versus.
Yeah, so the headlights would face off towards Ontario, back off to the west. When you're first coming
Oh,
in,
when
you're
they're first coming
placing.
in, right.
But
and
keep
then-
in mind, that area right now is zoned rural residential, it's vacant, and the future land use calls for it commercial. So you're facing up in the commercial there at that point. And then when you come south, yes, you're facing back off towards Mason Street and the property that way.
So point of perfect, so on this, the drawing, is the menu board, the box on this
The
toward us?
flashing things are, where the bushes. Right, there, yeah. That's the key word.
Oh, so the queuing is
Yeah.
just from there
It's like
to.
Here and down,
Yeah, I can't see it.
Oh, the queuing, oh, is that?
it comes right in from the driveway and goes this way.
This would be a sign saying drive through,
Mhm.
there's your mini board, there's your window board.
I was off, I thought the new kind of.
I'm thinking about the request for an earlier hour, and I understand the concern about competitors, which makes a lot of sense to me, is something we should take into account. The 5:30 idea of a kind of compromise strikes me as right on. Wouldn't that take a little bit of the pressure off of the school buses
Yeah,
by opening it up
Right.
earlier?
it, realistically, it's still an arbitrary number, right? We chose 6 o'clock, so round number. It's trying to keep in mind that typically places are open at 5 or 6 o'clock. And to still give that balance to the neighbors who are existing across the way, that you're trying to strike a compromise. And I hear what you're saying on that.
So Bill, can you, again, I guess I'm getting stuck on the semantics, where is building one?
Tenant 1 is the westernmost. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's all one building, it's 5 individual units.
Think of like the Starbucks on Oneida Street.
I know, I don't know why I was thinking that tenant one was, it is tenant one, but I was thinking the menu board would be closer to where the window is, so that you allow more room for queuing.
Oh, so this is where I think this makes a good sense for it. So you will need to have the 3 from the menu board, sorry, from the window, you need to have at least 3 there.
Three cards.
And then from the menu board, you need to have at least 3 from the menu board and back.
Back.
I don't have the exact number, I think it in the report here, but as far as trying to get cars between the window and the menu board, it gets you over 4 right there, approximately, at least 4 in that area. To have a bit more room to, in case there is a backup, that you can still get your orders happening off beforehand and just keep on churning those cars out of there.
So another clarifying point, so. Question, if the menu board stays where there's queuing is 9 cars from Finger Road? No,
The queuing would be saying, would be
Four.
from right here,
Yeah.
would be your first car, to back here where we wouldn't want to count anywhere beyond where the drive entrance is at,
right,
because you still have typical traffic happening, ingress, egress, so parking stalls. So you wouldn't want to count that as part of your actual queuing for,
right, because my question then
Crosswalk.
becomes like the Popeyes and the Starbucks on the west side. If you're backed up there on Finger, could you go around and loop back around and start another queue down?
Oh, come this.
oh, no, no.
You can't do that.
Don't work for that.
No, it's not like the movie.
It's not that would be. I like the loopy.
It's putting in the practicality that typically speaking, these lines don't get to becoming 13 cars long.
Because it's a
Really don't.
quick serve
Fast.
coffee versus a burger or a fry you have to cook.
Yeah. And because if it's that long. The
I ain't
entire
gonna
neighborhood
wait.
wanting to use a drive-through for
Yeah.
a coffee,
Yeah.
it gets less and less. To spend $5 on a cup of coffee.
I got a question. This is Jim Hutchison. Um, is there any input from the coffee shop at Mason Street and John Street after that's been put in a couple months ago? Because I had concerns when they put that in that there would be a lot of traffic congestion caused by that. Has there been any issues for, and I'm asking staff, with that coffee shop being in place?
Not that we're aware of, and using just hearsay from talking to other folks for other matters, this has not come up, and I think it would have in those conversations.
Right, and as far as any comments that I've heard the last couple of years, the only one would have been the scooters on East Mason, and the
No
comment
walk-up.
was there's no walk-up.
Yep.
But there was
Oh.
issues with the
Yeah, they
cars.
move
queuing.
not very, very quickly.
Yeah.
It's caught, they move not very quickly.
Yeah, I know we had concerns rightfully about the Popeye on East Mason because of what happened at West Mason,
Right.
but now that the chicken craze is over, it's a very, very slow queue.
Yeah,
For
and those concerns are invalid right now, because it's never, and they go probably, it's never been solved. Yeah.
Okay, is there any, I guess not, but anyone from Public Works in the meeting today?
Yeah, no, we had conversations with Jim Burnett on this, and he felt
Okay,
what I had mentioned as far as their bullet points on this.
okay. And my concern mirrors some of the concerns that have been stated about the traffic pressure that'll be on Ontario. If you're on Finger Road trying to turn left onto Ontario after being served coffee and people just driving east to west and on Finger and trying to turn left. I go through this area a lot, but not during the pressure points of in the morning and after work. I haven't really seen it. In normal operating hours, I don't think this will be an issue because there seems to be a lot of leeway and space. But I have a feeling if a lot of people are getting coffee, it's going to be during a time when they're going to work and there's going to be a lot of cars on the road. So I envision that there will be some issues with traffic. Now there usually are, whatever. But what I'm concerned about is Public Works not putting this on their list until more than 400 feet out of the 2,600 feet. I remember just months ago when a child care center, was presented, Public Works director said, yeah, this seems to be moving up on our list, which I was glad to hear. But I guess with this being installed, I know there's a lot more lineal feet to go to be developed, but I guess I'm of the impression we should really get started on the planning of this with this project, because if someone else comes in in the remaining whatever 1,200 square feet or lineal feet, it isn't gonna make this any better. So why don't we get Public Works working on that now? I guess I'm just speaking out loud that I'm hearing the concerns of individuals on this intersection. And I wish that there was a way we could have our Public Works Department respond to us that, yeah, we're taking this serious and we're gonna look at this sooner. That's my only concern on this whole thing. And I think we've had this discussion before, so.
Oh,
I just had a quick question, as I'm looking at the map, can you, so if you're on Mason, well, or Finger, Ontario. Sorry, Ontario.
Yeah.
Is there a crosswalk going from Ontario over Mason? There's not a crosswalk
it's like a
there.
weird sidewalk.
Oh, that right there?
Yeah,
There's not I know Mason is very busy, it's not a crosswalk.
That's a curb right there as far as what's just being shown. It's still a basic conceptual site plan, so didn't look into.
No, I'm looking at
Oh,
what's
we're
the
looking at
action
like
now.
a,
Oh, look
like
at the-
Google,
Like
Google Earth,
like what's there?
like a weird sidewalk right here,
On the west side,
and the
yes.
block across from it.
Yeah, that's a sidewalk there, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, on the west side, there's a walkway that you can use to cross East Mason. But it's not really called out because it's just not used yet. I use it on my bike.
Well, I know it was addressed by someone during a public hearing about crossing Ontario or,
I don't. think there's an
Finger,
actual crosswalk.
there's not a
There's
crosswalk
there's
there,
a
so that's why I'm
sidewalk, but
saying
that
sure.
doesn't.
Okay, I was just curious because it was addressed in a public hearing.
Yeah, I think there's only sidewalk on the west side of Ontario, just for that block. Just for that block that you can see. And then there's a ramp that goes down that walking south, that you could then use to walk across East Mason, but I, for the life of me, can't remember seeing white lines for a crosswalk there. Because I was on my bike and I would go into the street and, but this is the thing, we're dealing with having to upgrade these in the near future because of this potential walk and traffic now. So I think the need is coming pretty quick. It isn't down the road a ways, but I guess that will have to be imparted to Public Works as we go.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, didn't Public Works say that the more projects that come up, it's gonna start triggering? Because right now we're at 1/6. If we're talking 600, 400, 600 out of 2,400 is a sixth of the
It's right.
length. So more projects are gonna trigger the streets to
It's
be.
400 feet, and what triggers this is, like we have here, input from the neighbors. Input from the other,
Right?
Yeah, that's me.
How the road conditions of the existing road are compared to other roads on that list.
Yeah, and yeah,
But I guess I think we're kind of getting off track here because
Yeah.
we realize that traffic is something and that road needs to be addressed, but what we're looking at right here is the drive-through situation.
I'm sorry, did you recommendation?
Yeah, I
right.
recommend approval with those four conditions.
Yeah.
And just to clarify, the drive-through has been approved by the Board of Appeals.
The drive-through requested variance to allow for the windows and menu boards between the building and the street. They received it conditionally, so long as
Oh,
the CUP would be approved by common council.
okay, and the only way that can be done is if we approve this.
Right.
Gotcha, okay.
Couple questions. When discussing the times of operation, do we know that the applicant is going to actually have it? It keeps getting mentioned, but in person, you can go into the shop, because I know like scooters and stuff, you can't go into the coffee shop. So do we even know if it's coffee? I guess we should be saying that, but
We know it's coffee.
okay.
We know there's a patio outside.
Yeah.
For use. We know it's the same size as other places that would presumably have indoor seating.
So presumably, yeah. None of the places that are the 5 o'clock and 5:30 though have residential circles.
Yeah, they do.
Yes,
Scooters on East Mason and Starbucks on East Mason. I don't know what else. And those are just,
Those are-
those are right in residential area.
Right.
When they mentioned in the neighborhood, the drawings weren't presented or given to them, can you clarify that?
Yeah, so when it came to we sent a letter to the neighbors that are within, I believe, 200 feet into the neighborhood association. Typically, we send along a property map. And we send along a letter describing what's happening at the site, but when it comes to the details, that's posted online. The week before, you guys happen to receive it,
Friday.
but we don't send along as far as those letters go. Yeah. Potential.
But those letters are really meant to signify that something is happening here and contact the city. Same thing with the signs we put out on the site. They don't have any information except for a phone number and a web address. It's really just to let them know something's going and then to reach out. And we could email them site plans or they could come in and look at site plans at that point. Some of these packets are very large.
Yeah.
Try to mail them out. Some of the mailings that are hundreds of people. And it would be a huge expense.
Costly for
And
taxpayers.
you don't even mail them to us anymore, because you used to mail them to us.
No, we aren't mail.
So-
Well, it helps people for that matter, you know.
For the area outlined as storms, management area, you know, I'm thinking about all the headlights and things that are going and you're pointing down to the ordering. And then kind of facing the neighborhood to the one corner there. Is there any chance to extend that berm further west? Or are we pretty much stuck with that and the storm management area has to be that size? So do you get what I'm saying? If
Right,
the
yeah.
headlights are all pointed west. I mean, for those neighbors who are across there to see all the headlights glaring at them.
Right. This might be something that'd be good to speak with the applicant on this one. We didn't consider that as far as what our biggest concern was the neighbors directly to the north. And with the headlights then going off to the west to the vacant field and the future commercial. It wasn't something that was looked at as being,
It's not direct, and I'll clarify, it's not directly in the,
yeah.
but you know.
Be more red tape.
You just said
They're
it.
coming right here, that's nothing right there.
The phrase though, the future commercial. And the future commercial, of course, is already anchored on the mics. That area is going to develop. The only problem is that with the traffic, we're at the early point rather than the late point of that area developing. But I think it would be helpful to remind the public works folks that this is coming down the pike and we could have a lot easier time with neighbors if they knew that it was on the books.
That some good development has to go there, it's just, this is a problem right now with the traffic, I think that's the biggest concern I would ever have. In that area. But you know, it has to have something, I mean, we have to find some good fit for it, fortunately, and if it wasn't for the drive-through, as you said, this would just. It would already have started.
So I'd make a motion to approve, changing,
Oh, other.
I have a question.
oh yeah, I'm sorry, I was looking this way.
I feel sorry, go ahead, Alder.
Go ahead.
You know, the process. A couple of points in the question. When you say a couple hundred letters. Isn't it the rule of 200 feet? I don't think there's.
Depends on the site. It's 200 or 400, depending what site you're at. And if you're in an urban core downtown with a lot of condos, you can start piling them up.
I've never seen the 400 get in, but
400 is for any lot over 3 acres. It's a 400-foot distance.
So
But again, none of that is statute. That is plan commission preference. That is something the plan commission asks us to do.
So is that the exit literally onto the corner?
No,
No,
right.
Where's the exit?
this is the exit here. The driving patterns, if you are not using the drive-through, would come down through here and back out this way. If you're using the drive-through, it would loop around the building and then back out towards the.
Okay, the dark area there. Okay.
Yeah,
I guess the other concern I would have is how the light's coming out of there. Okay, so
Oh, that's fine.
the light is going in through the front, around the back.
Right, their headlights are inherent, that somewhere there have to be headlights on this property, and it is noted that if you are in either the second or third building off of Finger, headlights be coming towards your property.
Well, I mean, is there a concern that it also is headlights into oncoming traffic too? During that time, and does, you know, you got this time of the morning, different times of the year, you're gonna have the sun coming up. Think about that, cause that's probably even more of a situation in the morning on a drive-through like this. Just some thoughts I have.
Understood, yeah, with the drive.
Cause I mean, that can be blinding itself.
Yes. Yeah.
Sure, I can understand your point of view on that, but the drive-through, for the most part, the traffic as far as the drive-through lights would face perpendicularly to the traffic going along Ontario. And as they're stopped at the window board, perpendicular to the traffic over on Mason. So it wouldn't be directly into the headlights, right to the view of other folks. I think the people who have the most concern, and this is one of the members at the Board of Appeals, is if you happen to have either the second or third home, inherently there's be some sort of headlight issue happening there, but that would come from any establishment on this property, because your driveway
Right,
essentially needs to be in this
on
area.
that, right. Well, and it looks like as far as that second and third home, the second home has garages and second floor windows, but then huge bushes on either side, and then the next property is all garage. So,
Right, most of these are snout house type developments where your garage takes the predominant feature of
Right.
your front of your house, and then your actual entryway and living room is set back further into the house.
So any headlights would go right into a garage, a home wall. There's not going to either one.
besides the fact that there's screening too between this. I mean, we've got vegetation and screening between this property and the neighbors across the street.
Right, so you'd say the side reflection, if you're in line and
Right.
your headlights as you're sitting there idling or going slowly to the drive-through, would be, that's the point of the buffer in general for these places to put it on. A buffer.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sure we'll see this at council, so we'll be able to all take a look at it, and hear some more input, so.
I think ultimately, when you're looking at city planning, like. There's going to be residential districts that butt up to a commercial district. There's no way around that. You can't completely separate residential from commercial. The best you can do is add buffers, and our developer here has shown that they're doing that. They had no objection to what we had as far as the recommendations. So, you know, they're cooperative with what the city is looking for here, so I would make a motion to approve, changing item 3 to operating hours of 5 AM to 9 PM. Approval with the recommendations changing number 3 to 5 AM to 9 PM. You can keep discussing too if you want. That's just the motion on the floor. So,
Yeah, I agree. I second.
The only concern I have is just that 5 AM versus the 5:30. And I'm not sure that that's such a big concern, since we've already allowed all the other coffee stores to open up that early, but we could stop that here going forward.
it's true.
But I don't have a real,
I haven't
I feel
heard.
like no one's arguing about that.
Right.
Are you saying that 5? Are you saying we would-
I'm okay, I honestly, I would be okay, I mean, I understand the fairness with the other coffee shops in town, but at the same point, if we're trying to scale back on that, we could start that right now. But I could go either way.
And the proposal, or the applicant's representative is happy with 5:30. That I think gives a nod to the concerns of residents and accept a kind offer on the part of the proposer. Would you consider 5:30 instead of 5 on the motion?
Sure.
Then I'll second.
I would like to, if separate from that, if we could codify that. And put that somehow in
You have
like
to
that
For drive-throughs, the 5:30 is the earliest opening time.
for the future.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if we want to use that as a
Right,
precedent,
if we're-
fine. But that way
right, right.
developers coming in can know what to look for.
Right.
Oh.
No, that's fair.
Motion to amend the motion by changing the times to 5:30 and 9:30. AM and PM.
Motion by Commissioner Craddock, second by Commissioner Daniels.
That's just an amendment.
Just
Oh, I'm sorry, are we,
So
Can
I did
just
the
amend
motion
the
that was already, you can amend.
can we
it.
just amend the motion?
You are the motion maker and you amended it before, so you just need a new second
Second,
and then you go back. If somebody else was amending.
I was,
his motion that was seconded, you have to vote
okay,
on that.
I was confused about
Draw
who,
my formal amendment.
has those two in the middle, they, all right, 5:30 to 9:30.
yes, I think.
Question though, because this keeps coming up about DPW and the concerns we have for this location. Is there anything we can put on this motion that says we also strongly
Encourage.
encourage something so that the discussion moves forward on DPW?
I mean, you can, it's not gonna have any bearing on the Department of Public Works. However, Alder Hutchinson, Alder Campbell are both here, that's where there can be some.
That all
Action
brought
later.
forward Probably.
Right.
Yeah,
And that's
Don't
where
really
you have
regulate
Pat
anything.
there to
anything in the right of way,
make any
so.
recommendations.
So there we go. There's some homework for him.
But
And I know Alder Hutchinson has been in touch with, Public Works.
Yeah,
And I'm on Public Works.
Did you make the original motion? Commissioner, okay, so Commissioner, so, all right, so motion by Commissioner Ravinsky, second by Commissioner Daniels. To go as recommended, changing number 3's hours from 5:30 AM to 9:30 PM. Is there any further discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll go ahead with the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and then that will move forward to the city council for February? Or is it next week? 29th? 30th? Okay. All right, so February 6th. All right, and then moving on to item number 3, which is a public hearing. And this public hearing has been properly posted and public notification has been published in the Press Times. The Planning Commission is interested in hearing public comments on the subject agenda items. We invite your comments and ask that after your name has been called, you state your address, whether you represent a group or association, whether you favor, oppose, or only providing information, and your comments or concerns. We also ask that you confine your testimony to facts related to the proposal at hand and avoid repetitive testimony. City staff will be providing a presentation during the public hearing, and questions raised by the public may be asked, but they will not be answered by staff until the upcoming actionable item. You must be recognized by the Planning Commission in order to speak, and please address your comments to the chair. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. We will now open the public hearing on item number 3. Public hearing on the request for a conditional use permit to create a communication tower in the BP Business Park District at 1931 Coffin Road, submitted by Michael Bienick.
You got it.
Of Jose J. Morales Gonzalez, property owner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is the, oops, skipped ahead. So this is the property in question. Radisson Street runs alongside of I-43. So here's I-43. And then Coffin Drive, is just to the south of Radisson, and the property lies in between the two. The future land use for the property is light industrial. And it's pretty much all light industrial around there. And the same goes for the zoning is actually business park here. And as you can see, it's all business park. There is so the request is to put up a 155-foot tall monopole with a 4-foot tall lightning rod for a total height of 159 feet. This is being done because there is Cellcom currently uses the tower a few parcels down, located at Baycom, and this is a photo of the tower. So the new tower is gonna be somewhere on the other side of these storage units, so not too far away. This current tower can't support the new equipment that needs to go on it. So they're looking to put up this new tower. I'm gonna go. So basically where it's going is in the back part of an existing parcel that has a auto body shop and so here's the existing auto body shop. They would access, this would be the drive, and then the tower would be in the back of the property. In per 2013 Act 20, the Wisconsin legislature said you have to allow communication towers in every district, but we can regulate them with a conditional use permit. So that's what is happening in this particular instance. I did hand out a packet that was supplied by the applicant that is a very thorough, detailed description. And if you read it, it actually kind of makes sense, even though it looks very intimidating, but it is rather thorough. So with it being a conditional use permit, and here's a visual of what the tower would, look like. And then this is just a closer zoomed in version of what the tower would look like. So the tower here is in the middle, and then there's locations here for future tenants of the tower. We do, I guess I go into that into the recommendations part of it, but that is basically all I have for this part. And then once we get into the recommendations.
Thank you very much. All right, now with this public hearing, we're looking to hear from anyone who would like to speak on this item. You can state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mike Beanick, as you pronounced. I'm with a company called LCC Telecom Services. We are located at 10700 West Higgins Road, Suite 240 in Rosemont, Illinois. I apologize if there's a lot to it, but we wanted to make sure we had everything answered. As staff had mentioned, Cellcom is currently on a tower approximately 3 lots down to the east. And as she had mentioned, the tower is no longer capable of handling Cellcom's equipment. And basically the way the process works is they reached out to Vertical Bridge, who is a tower company. And they hired us to come up with a space for them to locate the tower. And this site was chosen. Basically, they're not looking to change the coverage that drastically from where they're at. They're just trying to be able to keep their equipment updated. The big buzzword nowadays is 5G. Everyone has heard of that. Yeah, exactly. That's it's one of those that all that really stands for is 5th generation. So that shows you these the cell equipment has to be upgraded quite a bit. So and that all kind of started really when we got all the smartphones and whatnot, that you had to keep your equipment updated and it's got to go faster and faster all the time. So essentially that tower that's there really can't provide them with that ability. And in our packet, some of the information I'll go over real briefly. We did provide a structural analysis for that tower showing that they could not use that tower to upgrade their equipment. Also, we provided you with propagation maps. So basically, they're about halfway through. There are these colored maps. And basically what they depict is the coverage with the site on air. And then it also shows with the site off of not being on air. So basically what they're looking for is, in very layman's terms, the red and the orange type colors are where they're really trying to enhance that coverage. The yellow and the blues and the whites are where the coverage is lacking. So essentially, they're not really inventing the wheel by getting a bunch of new coverage. There is some additional coverage because of the height. But basically, they're trying to maintain most of that coverage and provide better service essentially. We also, per the state statute, we provided a fall zone letter and an affidavit of need. Those are both required under section 66.
You saw me turn that off. You can go ahead.
No, that's fine. Those are both required under section 660404 of the Wisconsin State Statute. Those are two of the submittal requirements, and basically the affidavit of need comes from Cellcom. They're the carrier, they're the ones that need this. And also Vertical Bridge, as I mentioned earlier in my presentation, is a tower company. They make their money off of getting others to co-locate on their tower. So by going a little taller than the existing tower, they're able to provide room for additional carriers as needed. And being that they're just south of I-43 in an industrial park, you can see that this is a really good location. And it serves quite a bit of traffic. So the need is definitely there. So if you have questions, I'd be happy to answer. Yes, ma'am.
Actually, this is a public hearing, so
Oh,
we're gonna,
okay, I
public
apologize.
hearing, we're just hearing you, so
Understood.
thank you so much for your time.
Ed, like the Republic or no?
Public hearing is really, yeah, we'll wait till the actionable item.
Okay.
Because there's no back and forth.
Right, but if you just want to make a statement.
You can make a
That's a
statement, but we're not answering
I
you.
just said.
Okay, all right. Now, this public hearing, is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item?
I would like to speak.
Go ahead and state your name and address for the record, please.
Tim Schetz, address is 1940 Radisson Street, Green Bay, Wisconsin.
You can go ahead with your testimony.
Okay, we own the property kitty corner adjacent to the proposed tower. Our frontage is on Radisson Street. We are not in favor of the tower. We think that there should be more looking at where else it could go. We're concerned about property values. We're concerned about the power concerns. If lightning would happen to strike, I don't know what happens, but we already have some outages in that park. We were one of the first ones in the park back in the early 80s. We have a shop full of CNC equipment, and we make machines for the cheese and dairy industry. And, we sell if it's $1 million piece of equipment, we got probably $300,000 worth of electronics in it. And we don't want anything to happen to that. I mean, we take care of it within the building, but on the outside is a concern of the incoming power. We have employee concerns about, everybody kind of did a small little gasp when he mentioned the 5G tower. Yeah, I know there's no real, if there's evidence of that or not, who knows, but I would guess that if this was going up into any one of your backyards, you would be against it, as we are. Also, we have we talked to some of the other people around, neighbors. There's another one, Peterson Welding. They have more CNC equipment than we do. And he's concerned about it as well, but couldn't make the meeting. He's got laser equipment and bigger equipment than we do. So I just don't think that park is the right spot for it. I'm sure there's other places for it that should be looked at. So that's kind of the, in a nutshell, my opinion. We do not support that.
Okay,
Thank you.
Sorry, thank you very much for your testimony. No, public hearing.
Art design.
Okay, sorry.
All right. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item?
I would like to speak on it. My name is Tom Duquesne and I own 1980 Coffrin Drive, which is diagonally across from the property they're talking about putting this. And I, unlike Hart, am probably the newest kid on the block. We built the building in 2010. And I guarantee you, having a tower there is certainly not a plus for resale of the property. The other thing, much like he said, is the potential with a 150-foot lightning rod, as I call it. You know, it's more of a concern of Hart and Peterson's than but I've got computers, printers, all kinds of other crap. I don't know what the post office has for equipment running, but you can have a tree that is absolutely not conductive whatsoever, and it can be struck by lightning. So I guess I don't understand why people in the industrial park would like to see a 150-foot lightning rod erected in their backyard. The other concern is health concerns with radio frequency. If you remember when 5G first came out, they were having issues landing jets because it was affecting the communications to and from airplanes to the towers. So, you know, the faster and whatever, I'm assuming, is creating higher radio frequency. And there's articles written that safety for people are in the neighborhood of a quarter of a mile away before it's really a safe thing. So I think there needs to be some more looking at that. The other thing, and this is not to be sarcastic, but to tell you where to stick it, instead of putting it on this side of 43, why don't you stick it, and I'm sure a lot of tree huggers will get all bent out of shape over this, but why don't you put that in a wildlife sanctuary on the north side of 43 where there's no businesses, no houses. I actually do live on East Shore Drive, but there's a lot of wooded area. And typically when you see a tower, you will typically see it in the middle of a farm field. You aren't going to see it next to houses and buildings. And if they need more capacity there, again, it's showing that there's going to be a higher strength of radio frequency, more of a health concern. But in a nutshell, that's my 2 cents. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? Let the record reflect that no one came forward and this public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the corresponding actionable item, item number 4. Consideration with possible action on the request for a conditional use permit to create a communication tower in the BP Business Park District at 1931 Coffrin Road, submitted by Michael Beanick on behalf of Jose J. Morales Gonzalez, property owner.
Okay, so getting back to, I guess, obviously our recommendation here we're at. Staff doesn't have, oh, let me back up. So I did hear from another neighbor who owns the property directly to the east, Mike Berg. His address is 1933 Coffrin. And his concern, he just wanted to find out if there would be any, by allowing this use, if there would be, if it would cause like any potential like handicap to developing his parcel, doing any type of additions to it. And I explained to him that you wouldn't be able to put up another cell tower potentially, but it's not going to impact what you can do because they have to meet setbacks. You would have to meet whatever standards, requirements are in our city code as well. So he seemed okay with that. He just didn't want it to interfere with any potential development he were to do on his own site. So staff does support the request. We did find it to comply with the CUP requirements. As I stated, chapter or the state statutes does say that they are allowed in all districts, but we can require with the CUP. And because of the CUP requirement, we are requesting some conditions to be put on the approval. The first condition is that the parking must have at least one parking stall dedicated to the tower on site and pave vehicular access to the tower at all times. That they would have to comply with section 441586B, and that is the section of the city's code that states all of the different requirements that the tower has to meet. And that kind of talks about the, it has to provide, I think, provide at least usage by 3 or more users. So it gets into some more technical requirements. And then also compliance with the other regulations of the Green Bay Municipal Code. I guess getting back to maybe some of the comments that came up during the public hearing, thank you. I guess I can't really speak to what the impacts of the tower would have on mechanical equipment.
I can address all of those if you'd like.
But anyway, if there is somebody who does, I mean, I just can't answer that for the people who provided testimony. I don't know if anybody else,
Well,
any other staff knows.
the only thing I would add, and it's not directly related to that, as far as the lightning and the health effects and those types of concerns. Medina did put it in her staff report. When you look at the state statutes, so the state of Wisconsin, in 2013 or 2012, 2013, did change the state statute to say cell towers are permitted everywhere, every district, residential districts, commercial districts, industrial districts. You can put conditions on them to make them operate properly, but you can't deny them. And you can't limit them based on arbitrary reasons. So though health risks might be a concern of people, the state of Wisconsin, I believe it was 13 was Walker administration said there are none. So too bad. So I just want to point that out because there's a lot of concern about, you know, potential property values, potential health concern, potential lightning hitting a tower, which I think that would probably address those. But keep in mind, we are hindered on what the state statutes allow us to do.
With the CUP, this is what we find reasonable.
Correct.
Yeah. I appreciate,
Yeah, go ahead.
I would say I appreciate that clarification. I didn't have, and we were making sidebar comments, but I'm all about factual information, not fake information. But I did have questions around the lightning, just as for clarification. So thanks for bringing that up. I guess I don't have any concerns unless we open the floor. That question, but I don't want to open the floor.
Yeah, I was just gonna dispel the myth of nobody wants this. I would love having a cell phone tower on top of my house. I'll say that for the record. If it meant I would never have a drop call again. But yeah, the lightning, I think I'm just more curious than anything. I didn't know that 5G meant 5th generation. I thought it meant something else, so.
Right.
Motion to open the floor, so yeah.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Craddock, second by Commissioner Rivensky to open the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, I guess we do have questions for you.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be happy.
About the lightning.
I'd be happy to respond to any of the comments that were brought up.
Okay, yeah, please.
The lightning, one of the safest places you can be is near a cell tower. That lightning rod on top of that tower, it's grounded straight down into the ground. So it's actually, it's not designed, they don't want the tower hit, but it's designed to be that point to catch it, right? And then what they do is at the base of the tower, they put in a grounding ring. So essentially that lightning goes down through the tower and into the ground and the energy is dispersed under the ground. So it's actually safer for the businesses adjoining it in that regard. The health and safety issues, that's not something that a plan commission or any board can address. And I'm not saying that to sound like, I'm condemning it. The fact is there's, the Federal Telecommunication Act of 1996 has very specific language that says municipalities may not consider health concerns. The reason being is unless any one of you is a radio frequency engineer, you're up here. Whereas the FCC is the one that passed that regulation, and they do monitoring on these sites. They do testing. So they're saying that we, the FCC, are the experts, and we're telling you that this is safe. Not for you guys to sit here and wonder whether it is safe or not, and go into a big deliberation over it. Basically, the other question, and you had reacted to the 5G when I brought it up, just joking around. It wasn't that we were saying, oh my gosh, this is terrible. Basically, what 5G is, as Mr. Shates, I believe, mentioned the concerns of 5G around airports. Yes, there was a big to-do about that about a year and a half ago. And the FCC, the wireless industry, and all the different airlines got together. The problem with 5G is it did interfere, 100% interfered with the landing and takeoff equipment right near airports. It wasn't miles away. It was strictly right near airports, and it was major airports like Chicago, O'Hare, Dallas, Atlanta. It was the big airports because of the types of equipment they had in the control tower. So it's not smaller airports or 5 miles away from an airport. It's not interfering with that. Let's see. Going north of I-43 is not practical. And it's also something that's addressed in the state statute. The boards are not to be dictating where we can and can't go. Hey, you should go 5 miles this way or that way. We have an application before you on this property, and that's what we're discussing. We're not discussing the woods on the north side of 43 or whatever. So yeah, basically, as was mentioned earlier in my presentation, we're only a couple lots down from the existing site. That's where they need to be. We don't need to be a mile or quarter mile or whatever away from this site to make this work. And that also comes into play. I mean, this is an urban area. You can move it a little bit further if you're in a rural area because you're talking a 300-foot tall tower or something like that, where you're covering a greater base. Whereas when you get into urban areas, you're looking at shorter towers typically, because what they're doing is they're covering areas, but they're also serving as capacity for those areas. Cell sites operate on a grid pattern, and that grid is already built up. And so these sites in between have to basically take up some of that capacity there on the existing towers. So that's very important. Believe I've addressed all the comments. The power. There's a power pole right behind our property, the landlord's property, and there's also fiber. Those are the two things that we tap into. And we work with the utility companies. We don't do anything to impact the other companies around. So I believe that answered everything, pardon me. If you guys have any questions, I'd be more than happy.
Can
Yes.
you clarify, I mean, I think you mentioned it before, but just for the sake of the questions from the folks in the hearing, the equipment for the surrounding buildings that the concern about the effect of industrial equipment.
What impact they would have on the other
Yeah.
buildings? None, because essentially what those buildings are, they're typically not buildings anymore. They're, if you look at a newer cell site, they're typically they're called ground equipment. They're like gym lockers, essentially. It's usually like 3 gym lockers right in a row. They're like 3 by 3, approximately 6 foot tall. And all it is electronics equipment. And what it does is you tie the power and the fiber into that. and then you run cabling up through the tower to the antennas. So essentially the antennas get the signal, send it down to that, which is tied into the landlines, and then disperses the signal that way. That's essentially all that it is.
Thank you.
Question? This is Jim Hutchison. What are the plans for the existing towers that have the equipment on them right now?
On the existing tower that Cellcom's on,
Yes.
they would be decommissioning their equipment on that tower.
So will the tower come down or are they gonna just take the equipment off?
They can only take their equipment off. They don't own that tower. The property owner, or I don't believe it's a main company like, you know, the Vertical Bridges. So I don't know if they have other uses for that tower, but Cellcom would be taking their equipment off of that altogether.
Okay, so that tower was approved. Is there any way or anything that the commission can do with regard to that existing tower just to try to get it down, or is that just protected by the fact that it's up?
Well,
I can answer. So section 44-1586B is our wireless communication facilities section. And in there is section 8 is abandonment. So it does talk about, it says all unused wireless communication facilities or support structures shall be removed within 12 months of ceasing operations.
Okay,
Unless a time extension is approved by the plan commission. So I guess once all of the users of that tower are gone, then the city can move forward, you know, we can start tracking the time, I guess, the 12 months.
Is Cellcom the only one that uses that tower?
we would have to look. There could possibly be, you could use it for your own services as well. It doesn't need to be a telecommunications tower. And by looking at it, I'm guessing it may have been used as a personal use. Like we have antenna on the city hall here that police utilize. It's an internal operation. So we would have to look at that, but from that standpoint, I mean, that's a regular code thing. What's being requested here is on a different site, so you can't make a condition off-site.
good. Good, thank you for clarifying that. I think we should make sure if it's not being used, it should come down.
Yes.
I know it's not part of this action, thank you.
But for that other tower, that would have had its own CUP, right, for its height, so therefore you could have,
Potentially.
yeah.
I
So
mean,
there's other options too.
we would have to look at the permits for those. It could have gotten a CUP, it could have been in a time before CUPs were required, but were permitted, just permitted industrial uses. It could have been built as only a personal used tower, and then they got the cell service on there afterwards. I don't know the history on that tower. So I mean, it could be only for their site.
Remember, you got the floor open here.
Yeah.
We're ready for discussion, I think, before this floor, but I have some questions for the speaker. So you're saying that
You should direct your questions to the plan commission. They don't go to the. Not to the
No.
guest.
not to the guest?
No, he can answer them if the plan commission wants.
Okay, sorry.
No, it's no problem. Just, that's
The point.
kind of how it works.
Yeah. Procedural. no
But
problem.
it's the other way. Being that I'm not the public. Everything I want to ask is gonna go through him, so I don't understand.
We'll just ask it out loud and then
Okay.
we'll say,
Sure.
answer those questions, please.
That's
To answer the
fine.
question, it's not a conversation back and
Yeah.
forth from the applicant
That's
and.
where I was wondering where it was going, okay? So, this, one, I didn't get a packet. How can I relay information that wasn't in anything that was sent out?
Did you not, you should have gotten the notification of
I
the
got the
meeting.
notification.
Okay. We don't send out packets.
Well, the
Oh,
council gets
sorry.
packets, I believe, in mailboxes. So you didn't receive a packet at all?
No packet. I sure
Well, I'll
looked at it,
I'll have to look into that. I don't,
unless it was there today.
I believe the council members. did.
Was this, I mean, this wasn't in the package.
Not that.
This came today.
Right.
Right, that would have
So
been
you didn't
digital.
get this is what you're talking about?
That
No.
too,
Yeah, that would have been digital. I'll check the packets.
well, it'd have been nice to, one, my first thing when we approached it, and wish it would grab. How much 5G is in the city already? And we know there's always been controversy about 5G and, you know, whether the state statutes say it's there or not. As a city, as a body, we still have the right to refuse it
No, we don't.
No, we don't. Yeah.
or put use. Add additional stuff on it. I don't know. This is just,
Yeah, you could put conditions on the site operation, so you can require parking, driveways,
Screening.
screening if it's relevant. But yeah, you can't,
I know information
you
right
can't,
here.
you
All right.
can't deny that.
next question.
Actually,
So this process. So. Mr. So-and-so here, I forgot your name,
chair.
came forward with the proposition to the landowner.
I mean, that's, I mean, yeah, that's generally.
Okay, and. Who holds the permit for this then? The company, so he's renting this property to you? The company that's erecting the tower, that owns the tower?
I would assume he's leasing, but I don't know.
Okay, well, I'd like to know those questions. As far as tenants as of the tower, so as I saw the print up there. Number, is it up there? So the little plots of land around it, or
Oh, yeah,
a little closer picture of that.
I think it's the next one.
Yeah, there. So that's just the equipment for other vendors to use it, call it vendors.
Future carrier lease
Future
area is
carrier,
how
okay,
it's
how we
titled.
call it. And all this will be fenced in, according to the city. I'm sure we have some kind of, if there's a ground rod in there and the guy from Bay Heating lets his dog out there and the lightning strikes, kills his dog.
There's a compound.
I'm
Yeah,
just
it's a
saying, I
50 by
mean,
50.
that's what ground rods are for. And I can understand the concerns about these people and all their equipment. I know the one place, Peterson Welding, they employ 46 people there and they have a lot of equipment there. I did talk to them earlier. That's their main concern is how it's gonna affect their equipment. I mean, not only do they employ a good part, and he was like one of the very first people there. I've talked to Mr. Tim Schatz earlier before I came and try to get these guys all on board and give them the best knowledge that I have, and I didn't really get anything in a packet or anything, so it was kind of hard to share. I apologize, but I can assure you that we'll be looking at this a little closer at council. And give us some time, and I would expect that you might want to come to that.
It's the February 6th, I believe.
Correct.
Yeah, I will definitely be there.
So I can answer some of your questions. Yes, we do require security around the base of the mechanics. It has to be secured so the general public cannot get into it, so whether that's a fence or some other aspect. That would have to be secured. I believe they have a fence proposed.
Proposed
50-foot
by 50-foot compound fence.
Right. Yeah, as far as the leasing and ownership, that wouldn't be a plan commission item to think about. Whether you're leasing the lot or not, it's not
Is it
our
real?
business.
Yeah. Relevant.
What were some of the other ones? Oh, did you, so this is just curiosity for me. So you didn't get the PC packet in your mailbox. Did you get the letter?
I got the letter.
You didn't feel the need to call us? And
I
ask us
called
anything?
my constituents first, yes. And I asked them to do the research too on their own, so that I wasn't influencing it. I mean, I'm only protecting what their cares are.
Sure, I was just didn't want that you called us and we didn't respond to you. Know, ask us to see.
I'm trying to sell it. I'm not trying to sell it. I'm just trying
Okay.
to give their attention.
And
Their
then,
concerns.
yeah, so I don't know if there were any other questions here that
I'm looking through right now.
staff would have the ability to answer.
So as far as
I
city
did hear
code,
another question, and I believe it was already addressed, but I just wanted to ask it to be addressed again, whether or not the existence of the cell tower would have any impact on machinery in buildings around.
No, it would not. And the reason being, as I mentioned, everything that they do, the carriers, the tower is separate from the carriers, just first off. Vertical Bridge is a tower company. They're not a carrier. They don't have any frequency. Cellcom is a carrier. The other ones that we all know that we have phones, AT&T, Verizon, Sprint, and other locals. But basically what happens is when a carrier wants to service an area, the Federal Communications Commission issues spectrum and they put it up for bid. And essentially, each carrier, when they want to service an area, they go to the FCC and bid on a specific allocated frequency, the frequency that they typically will use. And that frequency is very well managed by the FCC not to interfere with anything else, no other frequencies, no other equipment at all. And they're beholden, each carrier is beholden to the FCC not to interfere with stuff. So.
Thank you for making that a little clear. I knew that the Alderman wanted to be able to reassure his constituents.
Certainly.
Thank
And that does, so if a problem would arise,
They
what
could,
kind of action
oh,
can
sorry.
be taken?
Would you like me to answer that? So essentially, I apologize. You would contact the FCC and open an inquiry and they would be able to address it.
So my constituents could do that now?
I mean.
I suppose.
Hours.
They're not
Wait,
proven.
there's no-
That's no, it's.
Essentially,
Yeah, absolutely could.
yeah. I mean, essentially, it appears that the site's been acting correctly. I mean, it's been on air for a long while. If there was a problem with it, I would expect one of your constituents would have already raised that issue. I mean, we're just a couple lots down from where it's existing right now.
But only 2G, not 5G.
2G is no longer in service. That they've, in fact,
I live less than a couple
Yeah.
hundred feet away and I have
Point
2G.
of order.
And I have 5G and 2G comes in 5G, 3G don't.
A motion to close the floor.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Braddock and second by Commissioner Daniels to close the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Madam Chair, I think we've exhausted the realm of our scope of this particular project. If there's other things the council wishes to bring up, I think they can bring that up at council, but motion to approve with the conditions that are recommended by staff.
I do have just one other question about it, looking further into the plan. And I agree, I will second the motion once we get to it. Just looking at the fencing around it. Their picture does show a chain link fence with barbed wire on it. I'm sure that'll have to go through for plan review when I don't believe, unless it's allowed in industrial parks, but there, I just want to make sure that the screening is
Yeah.
appropriate.
There's other issues too with the site plan, like they're showing gravel. We don't know for gravel either, so.
That'll all go through site plan
Anything,
review.
yeah,
Okay.
they would still have to comply with any code requirements.
And I just wanted to make another
Yeah.
kind of point about it too, bringing up the screening. If anyone drove past the tower that we approved a few months ago over on, was it Humboldt Road? They put up really nice screening and you wouldn't know that that tower hadn't already been there. Like it blends in pretty nicely as much as a tower can. I feel like they did a pretty good job. We deliberated a lot on that one. Like, I'm comfortable with it.
Yeah, in this
We've been through this before.
Yeah.
it'd be whatever screening is in the code, and as far as business park, there really isn't a lot of.
Right.
Screening because of the uses happening there. It'd be different if it was adjacent to residential, like in that particular instance.
That was gonna be my follow-up
Right.
question. Is I think we had verbiage in there that it had to be solid. Here it's showing chain link. I'm fine with that in
I
industrial.
mean,
park.
I guess
just
if you
wanted to-
wanted to put a condition on, there's nothing to say that you couldn't.
I don't
The
know if
last
it's
time it was in
necessary.
resident, it was
Yeah.
in residential last time, this time it's industrial, so it's different.
Yeah. That was just
The one at Humboldt was directly across the street from Six Flags.
correct.
Right.
I'm good with the screening as is on this, as long as, you know, the
Site plan.
barbed wire site plan review.
Yeah.
With that all being said, I would second the motion.
So we have a motion by Commissioner Braddock and a second by Commissioner Ravinsky. Do we have any further discussion? Okay, now we'll go ahead with the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and then that will go forward then to city council for February sixth.
Thank you very much.
Moving on to informational,
If you want.
director's report,
You're welcome.
director's report.
Doing that?
Are you?
Yes, Cheryl's on, but I'm pretty sure it's my bad day. We found the room. All right, so common council did meet last week and they approved all the items discussed at planning commission, except for the increase to hold the subdivision variance request from the Southwest Corner project. That was near Mason and Eagle. So they'll take that up, I believe at the following, common council meeting after Public Works has some time to review the traffic impact analysis.
Was that the Vader project?
Yes. I have the same development tracker spreadsheets, included. I'll be updating that monthly, so it's the due date from last time. I'll have a new inventory next time. If you don't have any questions from me, I was gonna turn the rest of my time over to David Buck, who wanted to give an update on our comprehensive plan process. I guess we could stop with a question for me.
I'll take over.
Because I know he has been spending a lot of time on getting stakeholder meetings and advisory committees together to our comprehensive plan. Wanted to send you all the way to snooze.
Yes. So, we are plugging right away with the comp plan, putting together a citizen advisory group. Potentially with, one of your own member on there. It'll be a 14-member group, kind of gets multiple expertises or areas of the city, economic development, neighborhoods, legal disability, there's a bunch of different ones. So on the 31st, there'll be the first meeting of the citizen advisory group, so getting the people together, trying to get commitments. Consultants will be up from Chicago. The same day, and that'll be in the evening of Wednesday evening. Wednesday and Thursday during the day, they'll be doing what's called stakeholder interviews. So they're gonna be entering 2 to 3 stakeholders from each sort of sector of the community, developers, educators, healthcare professionals. They'll do those through the day, and so that's the start. Before those happen, Wednesday and Thursday, we should have the website online. There'll be an online survey, there'll be an online web mapping program where you can click on a map and write your comments and that kind of stuff. Yeah, and the do-it-yourself kits, which then staff, obviously this will all kind of roll out the rest of the winter and starting spring. Staff will take those do-it-yourself kits to, we call them the G40, but group of 40 agencies within the community that really kind of have their
Secret agency.
none of them are secret. But they have their,
secret.
right, they have their tendrils all over the place. We'll probably go to the Green Bay neighborhoods and drop off some of them.
Tendrils.
There, well, yeah,
I don't like that word.
tendrils are better
I like
than
tendrils.
tentacles.
Strike tendrils from the record.
Roots, they have their roots all over. Let's switch it to roots.
Squiggly things.
And yeah, so that we are plugging forward. It's gonna start to go fast and furious. The consultants let us know today they are about 85% of our existing condition report, which is a memo basically that they put together and supply to the city, saying these are your existing conditions. So explanatory, I think. So that is where we're going right now. I'll give you that update, but it's coming quickly. We'll be reporting out here, sort of like I kind of have been. We haven't had a lot to report yet, but report that out regularly.
Thank you very much, sir.
Volunteer for that group.
We might need one.
I'll volunteer if you need one.
We may. I'm still
I'm
putting
sure
it
you have someone
together.
in mind, but.
All right,
And it is.
so date of the next meeting is February 26th, 2024.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Motion by Commissioner Fraddick, second by Commissioner Brummer to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Bye.
Bye, Joe.
I do.